Hello, today I'm going to give a brief overview of cloud services and telco's role or potential role in that marketplace. Just to start out with a very quick definition of cloud, and there are lots of these around, but a very good one we got from Oracle, which is a self-service, multi-tenanted, elastic, accessible and metered computing services, or STEAM as the acronym. We like that. We think it's a good way of trying to remember and identify something that's actually a cloud service rather than something that's an internet service. And there are, another easy way to think about it really is it's just a different way of doing corporate computing, but using other people's resources to do it. And I'll talk through some of the ways in which this happens. Perhaps the most important thing to think about is what's the reason? Why is cloud an important phenomenon? Well, it's important for two reasons. One, because most large organisations will be using it in coming years to save money and to improve things like flexibility, time to market. Cisco, one of the leading selling companies in this field, but also one of the leading proponents, big fan of eating their own dog food. They used cloud services internally and claim savings of up to 30%, in fact more than 30% on OPEX and CAPEX just from replacing their internal systems with cloud. So there's clearly a very compelling business case from a cost perspective. There are some other things which some people see as risks and fears for doing so, and we'll talk about that a little bit in the next few minutes. But that's the big reason, the cost savings and the flexibility. And from telco's point of view, they're naturally involved in this marketplace because cloud services, because they're out there somewhere else other than your server, need connection. And therefore, an important part of the service is to provide connection and computing together. And that's really why telcos have got a key role in it, or potentially a key role in it. And that's one of the big debating points. So just to give you a sense of the size of the prize, I'll come on to some revenue numbers in a minute, but it's forecast by the Bain Centre of Excellence in Cloud Computing that the cloud market, the profits from the cloud market, will in fact be 2% of the technology profit pool. So technology means here smartphones, clouds, services and software. The growth in the profit pool of that in the next 2 to 3 years will be $26 billion. And cloud will be 18% of that. So whilst small in terms of the overall profit from technology services as described, sort of around the 2% mark, it's a very major component of growth in that marketplace and in the profits in that marketplace in the next few years. Telcos today have around 5% of that. So there's considerable scope for telcos potentially to grow in this sphere where they have a natural role in some cases. Now to talk about some of the different types of cloud. The first and simplest type is enterprise private cloud. And this is where an enterprise uses the benefits of virtualization, the techniques and technologies used in large data centers to improve flexibility, resilience and cost performance within its own IT systems. The second sort, virtual private cloud, very much the same thing, using cloud in entirely an internal way, but having pieces of that infrastructure owned by someone else, but always available for the enterprise's use. The third type is called infrastructure as a service, and this is much more of a pay-as-you-go type, characterized by Amazon EC2, where the CIO goes off and pays for some pay-as-you-go computing, some network or storage solutions. Fourth type, platform as a service. This is again as a pay-as-you-go type approach, typified by Google Apps, which is for software development, frameworks and components. And finally, software as a service. Perhaps the easiest example to think of in that sense is Salesforce.com, which is a CRM piece of software, which is an application service bought usually on a subscription basis. So those are the sort of 5 main types of cloud. Come to talk now a little bit about the revenue size and the size of the prize here. So first thing to say is growth is forecasted in almost every area of cloud, with one exception, which I'll come on to. 25% compound average growth rates forecast over the next 2 to 3 years. Again, these figures are reasonably commonplace in the market, certainly these are Bain's figures I'm using at the moment, but also most of the other people are giving similar numbers for market size and the nature of the composition of the market. And that means a market today, in today's money, or probably last year's money, more like 20 billion, growing to 40 to 50 in the next 2 to 3 years. I'm being relatively loose here. There's some much tighter figures in in the printed forecast we have on our research site. But I think in this marketplace there's still quite a degree of uncertainty, but I think that gives you a very good sense of the size of the prize. And in terms of the components of it, the first piece I talked about, enterprise private cloud, that's actually forecast to sort of plateau or, if anything, shrink slightly over the next couple of years. The second piece of the market, virtual private cloud, is actually forecast to grow to about 6.5 billion in 3 years' time. Key players in this area: IBM, Terremark, who've been acquired by Verizon, so part of the telco asset in this area, and T-Systems, part of the Deutsche Telekom group, is another example of a telco active in this area. That's forecast to grow 34% in the next 3 years. Infrastructure as a service, key players here: Amazon, really the kind of gorilla on the block, or at least certainly in people's perceptions. Savis, Equinix, and which are all now part of the QWest CenturyLink group, so another piece of telco play here, and Terremark, Verizon also play in this group. And just to put it in context, in today's market, in virtual private cloud and in infrastructure as a service, both about the same size, predicted in 3 years' time, $6.5 billion. Telcos currently have about 20-25% share in both of those areas. Platform as a service, forecast to be slightly bigger, $8 billion in 3 to 4 years' time. Key players here: Microsoft, Force.com, and Google Apps. Forecast to grow by a very healthy 94% compound average during that period. And last but certainly not least, software as a service, forecast to be around $17.5–18 billion, and key players here: Salesforce, Intuit, and WebEx. And that, whilst a large area is growing a little bit slower, the others will forecast to grow a little bit slower at about the 16% mark. So you can see there's a big market already, 20 billion, of which telcos have about $1 billion, forecast to grow to nearly double that in that time period in the next 2 to 3 years. So cloud services, can telcos do it? The reasons we think telcos have a good role in the cloud marketplace: number one, the network, a natural part of the proposition; number two, the customer relationships where they have them with the right kind of enterprises; and number three, the scale and the reputation for trust and security. The cons, the reasons they might not be able to do it, are it is a different sort of IT service, IT experience, so not everyone's going to be able to do that. And there is a question mark over the professional services element of it. So those are the kind of riskier elements of it. But on balance, what we're seeing is that there's good opportunity for telcos there. And the kind of comments we're getting, you can see on the screen here from some of our delegates: stop procrastinating, telcos, get on with it. Start using the network to make the cloud services better. And those are typically American comments we had. In our recent European brainstorm, we put some questions to our audience. We gave them some quite specific guidance on the current market size, the forecast growth. I'm not going to show you the questions because they're a little bit too complex to go in here. But we got some forecasts. And again, these aren't our forecasts, although we wouldn't say this is a million miles from possibility. It's saying about how could the market grow. And what we're seeing is that telco's role in virtual private cloud could be in the region of 30%. It's currently about sort of 20%. Infrastructure as a service, 25%. Again, it's around the 20% mark now. So, a little bit of share growth there as well as matching the growth of the market. In terms of platform and software as a service, we're seeing sort of 15 and 11% shares forecast by the telcos. So reasonably optimistic that they can take a piece of that. And all in all, if you couple the growth of the marketplace and the forecast growth in share, or at least the expected growth in share, maybe that's a better way of putting that, you're seeing a market for telcos there in the region of $9 billion, which is a ninefold increase over the $1 billion that they see today. So really quite a big growth opportunity and prospect there, providing those things come true. And of course, with any forecast, there's a degree of doubt. And I think cloud is one of those areas which is very hot at the moment. But it's also been an area in which there was a recent major problem for Amazon. And it's kind of unlikely that that's going to completely derail the cloud services market in our perspective, although it is likely to produce some degree of concern and additional fear amongst CIOs who are naturally and reasonably quite security oriented in that respect. So a little bit remains to be seen about the full knock-on of that, but we don't think it's going to derail the market completely. So in conclusion, what's our top line about cloud? Well, it really, to go back to what I said at the beginning, it's important to telcos from an internal perspective because of the cost savings possible and available, and it's important to try this out and to work out how to make it work organisationally. But secondly, there is a good potential role for telcos in this marketplace, and we've outlined the reason for that and seen some of the optimism in the market for that, and we think we'll see that coming through. So overall, what we're saying about cloud for telcos is it's important to have an integrated cloud strategy. And with that, I'd like to conclude and say thank you. And if you'd like to know more, there's more on our research site, www.telco2research.com. Thank you.